Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj from the bestemailmarketer.com, and my guest today is Ken McCarthy, a true godfather of online direct response who was teaching click-through rates, email marketing, and web advertising long before they become mainstream. He has trained thousands of marketers to turn those principles into scalable systems, seminars, and info products. Ken, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so if you're starting today and wanted to build separate email list in different sub niches where you sell affiliate offers, how would you decide which micro market are worth building a list around?
Okay. So we're talking about building a business that's primarily based on email. So we're probably talking about information related businesses.
Yes.
Okay. So publishing and so on. Well, the first thing, of course, is find an area where either you have great expertise or where you can partner or source people with great expertise. You could be the front man for somebody who's maybe shy, but is actually quite expert. Or it could even be an area where you have intense interest that's unlikely to diminish. You're just so into it. You don't necessarily have to be the world's greatest expert, but you have to have deep interest in the subject and you need to live and breathe it. And it's perfectly okay not to be the world's leading expert. You don't have to be, but you do have to be into the subject. You can't just sort of, go into a business just because it looks good. You have to love the topic and also love the customers. Like you have to be whatever niche you go into, you have to be very dedicated to your customers and your subscribers and readers getting great benefit from you. So those would be the basics. And then the next thing is that you really want what I call endless loop problems. You could be in a business where and it's nice to solve people's problems. It's very good. But as a business person, you really want to be in a niche where the issues are ongoing. So for example, there's a reason that the financial area is so attractive and profitable and so many people are in it. There's no end to it. If you make $1 million, then you want to make 2 million. If you want to make 10 million, then when you have 10 million, then you have to worry about keeping your 10 million. That's what I call an endless loop problem. Another endless loop problem is another huge category, which is health. Because we're human beings and we're not machines, we're going to have a wide variety of health questions and challenges and interests over a long period of time. People who are health buyers remain health buyers their entire life. For instance, if I need someone to replace a window on my house, right? Well, he comes, he replaces the window, and it's done. I don't need to have a lifetime relationship with him. But if I'm a health interested person, I might stay with a particular expert for years or even decades. In fact, I'm going to be a guest on an interview tomorrow with somebody that I was listening to in the health arena in the 1980s. So I haven't been a constant listener every day, but I've been aware of this fellow for that long. So health and finance tend to be endless loop issues that you never quite resolve them 100%. And of course, with financial, if you're talking about making prices available or trading advice available, well, every day that changes. Every minute it changes. So make sure just to recap, make sure that you're going to something you either are genuinely knowledgeable about or have access to somebody that is genuinely knowledgeable, or you have a true passion for it and are studying it every day. And then the second thing is make sure you don't have to do this, but it's a good idea to be involved with things that never come to a resolution. Like for instance, marketing. You know,
Mhm.
I still buy marketing books. I still am trying to learn things about marketing decades and decades and decades later. So that's my advice for the general shape of how to approach a business like this.
Okay, Ken. So when you look at a market, what clues tell you this group will happily pay every month for ongoing help versus a one-time solution in info marketing?
So one-time solutions versus every month.
Yeah.
I think number one, I think you really, really want to get the every month buyer. They are so much more valuable than a one-time buyer. I think that is really, you should be thinking about that all the time. Because one-time buyer, then you have to sell them again, and then you have to sell them again. And it's every time you have to sell them something new, it's work. Whereas if you sell them on the idea of a membership or a subscription or a coaching program, well, you've made the sale once, and then if you're good and you do a good job of serving them, you don't have to sell. In a sense, you have to sell them all the time. You have to remind them by giving them value or entertainment or wherever the value might be, that this is a great deal, that this is something they don't want to lose. And you do that by just the quality of what you present, right? And the relevance and the quality of what you present. I mean, there are certain subscriptions I would never let lapse because I really, really want to hear what that person has to say the next month. I might not necessarily go out and buy a new thing from them, a book or a course. I might not ever. But from the point of view of owning a business, it's great to have a subscription base of people that you can count on. You wake up the first day of the month and well, we've got this much money. We know we have at least that much. And then when you sell things to them in addition, that's what they call the icing on the cake, right? So the cake would be the monthly membership fee, and then the icing would be anything additional that you can sell to them. But really, really, really think strongly about if you're going into an information business, which is really an expertise business, that you figure out some way to make it an ongoing membership. It's really important. I have to say, so I want to give people some perspective. When I started teaching internet marketing in 1993, and you did mention I was one of the pioneers, people would always come to me and ask, well, this in the early years, they'd ask to Ken, what can I sell? And I said, well, you can sell anything. But, one thing you want to look at is maybe you can sell expertise. And believe it or not, it was very hard in the 90s and even the early 2000s to get people to understand that there was a great business opportunity in selling expertise. People just they couldn't wrap their minds around it. Of course, now there's 10 billion people selling expertise. Everybody's figured it out, and that's in some way a discouraging thing, but it also should be encouraging because it shows the vitality of the market. People who have a particular need, either it's a health interest or a financial interest or a hobby interest. Hobbies are great, by the way. There's a great phrase, fuel the fun. For example, I have a business that I started long ago. I didn't really expect much of it. And it's not a big money maker, but I don't spend any time at it at all. I have an employee that does all the work, and it's related to jazz music. And we basically pick a jazz video that we find on YouTube, and we send them an email about it. Man, it took a long time to build that business up. And sometimes I'm wondering why people don't just turn on, Instagram or Spotify, but they've developed a relationship with us. And the way we get money from them is we ask for contributions, donations. We don't, I think if we ask people to pay for it, they'd say, well, can I get this from Spotify? But because there's so much passion in the jazz world among jazz music fans, that's the other thing you're looking for too. Niches where the members of the niche have tremendous passion. And believe me, people may not know this if you're not in that world, but people that love jazz really love jazz. Like it can be the center of their identity, you know? So that's another example. So financial health, or also finding, and I happen to love jazz music and I'm very knowledgeable about it. So that was a very easy fit for me. But I have to tell you, even I was reluctant when I started that business. I don't know. I didn't think much would come of it, but I'm really glad I did because it's a bill payer. It's a good side business for me to have in addition to the other stuff I do.
So, for someone who wants to build a business mainly by promoting other people's continuity offer, then that time what criteria someone should look at?
You have to be so careful. And this is very tricky, and even I have made this mistake and been burned. You have to be if you're gonna promote somebody else's stuff, you really have to know it inside and out, upside and down. You have to know everything about it. You have to know everything about that person because, you can you can sell stuff that goes wrong, once or twice. You don't wanna do that, of course, but you won't survive that. I mean, your list will eventually, your buyers, 'cause you have a list, and only a percentage of any list are actual people that buy. Most people are just sightseers. That's okay, because you don't know. So get as many sightseers as you can and try to convert them to buyers. Well, those buyers are precious, and if you promote something to them that goes bad, they will not be happy with you. So that's why I say the first thing you have to look at is quality of the person. quality of the product. Like you need to see the product and experience it. I mean, I'll tell you, right now 2 courses that I'm in. One, believe it or not, is on Facebook, Facebook marketing, and it's an excellent course in every way. But the guy overpromised. He promised things that he's not, and he delivered a lot. And actually, I'm okay with what I paid for it. I'm like, this is okay. I learned a lot. I'm happy I bought this thing, but I can't recommend it because, and he's a good guy, but I can't recommend it because there's a gap between what he promised and what he delivered ultimately. So I can't get behind that. And I could make a lot of money selling his course, but I'm just not going to do it. And then there's another course, it's a financial course, and I'm very reluctant. In fact, I have never promoted a financial course because it's serious. Someone, with marketing, somebody might go and try some marketing and it might not work for them. Okay, it's not the end of the world. But with finance, somebody could mortgage their house, or take their life savings, or their whole family's life savings and put it into some crazy investment and it goes bad. I mean, that's very serious. So that's why I've never found any financial. I mean, there are some advisors that I will tell people about for free. I'll just say, hey, this guy's good. He's worth reading. But in terms of courses and methods and all that, and I took a course. It's a method, and again, it's good. Not unhappy that I bought into it, but I see all the flaws that it has, and I see that he did not disclose um, everything about the method, because now it's not just a course, it's you're taking real money and using a method. So I'm glad I know the method. It's an addition to my understanding of financial markets, but ultimately he didn't deliver on his promise. So I will never recommend it to anybody. So so quality control is super, super important if you're going to recommend other people's things.
So, I'm guessing it is much more easier to partner up with an expert and promote our own stuff instead of promoting affiliates.
Well, I mean, if there are good affiliates and you can find them, and they're legit, and there are legitimate things, no problem. I had one of my most successful students is a guy named Lloyd Irvin Jr., and he was a very successful Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. Won, the international, whatever the contest for his age group, not internationally. I mean, really good. And then he has a huge training facility. He has 10,000 square feet. Fighters come to train with him from all over the world. When he first got started, his first strategy, and he learned internet marketing from us. And now he's got a really big business. He's in all kinds of different areas. His first thing was to establish his identity. And so in those days, there was no Facebook and there was no, Instagram or Twitter. So what he did was get on message boards. There used to be this, I don't know how much this even exists anymore, but there used to be dedicated message boards, message board about Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or a message board about flying kites, or a musician, or a board about raising dogs, or training dog. What I mean? There were thousands of them. I kind of miss those days. Those were great. Well, now that's been taken over by social media. Whether it was the old days with the discussion boards or the social media today, his first strategy, and it was sound, was to establish his expertise. We'll call it social media, even though it's not social media the way we think of it. But his first task, and it took him many months, was and he had a lot of background already. I mean, he had been the world champion. He spent many, many months building up a following on the social media of the day. And then the very first thing he did was he offered another person's course, but it was a course that he knew very well, that he had full faith in. By the way, martial arts is another endless loop problem. Think about it. You want to learn how to punch, so you learn how to punch. And then somebody comes and kicks you, and you're like, oh, I don't know how to defend against the kick. So you have to take the course on the kick. And then somebody comes after you with a knife, and you're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. So then you need the course on the knife, and then on and on and on. So martial arts is another one of those things. If somebody's into it, they're really into it. So anyway, he established himself over many months as a legitimate authority. And then once he had his following, he found a good product that he could get 100% behind, and he sold it on behalf of the other person. And then he realized, wow, if I spent the time developing my own course, I would have made all the money, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's that step by, and I would almost say, you know, you've got to be able to establish your expertise. That's step one before you even sell anything, because no one's going to buy from, if you have no one to talk to, you can't sell to anybody. And if you haven't established your expertise, why would they buy from you or take your recommendation? So first, you got, you know, it may take months, may take years. You know, this is not a quick business. There's a funny joke. I remember somebody in my field, somebody asked the guy, what's the fastest way to make money in 30 days? And his answer was, get a job, right? Because this is not a, I'm going to make money in 30 days business. You know, if you already have a business and you're adding a new product, yeah, of course you can make money in 30 days. But if you're starting from scratch, you have to realize it takes time and effort to build up a following. And that's why these followings are so valuable. If it was easy to do, everybody would do it.
Okay, so I think it is much more better to focus on building one list instead of focusing on building multiple lists in multiple industry.
I think so. Yeah. In my experience, see, when I was when I was doing marketing full time for other people and also teaching the courses, and just for your listeners, you know, I am the person, this is historical fact. I am one of the people that invented the banner ad. I am credited by Time Magazine as being the first person to really understand that the click-through rate was meaningful economically. I was one of the first people to do sequential autoresponders back in 97. I was one of the first people to use audio. I was one of the first people to use video. One of my students wrote the first book on mobile ads. You know, so I was into it. And when I focused just on that and didn't have any side issues of any kind, I made a lot more money. Now I'm doing the things that I wanted to do, because I don't want to just be a marketer. And so I still do some marketing, but I've largely retired from that. And now I'm doing the things that mean the most to me. And I'm making a lot less money. You know, it's just the way it is. But I'm happy because I made plenty of money when I was making it. And now I'm doing things that are super meaningful to me. But the point I want to make is, when you're starting, pick one thing and go deep and get really, really good at it. And diversification does not help.
Okay, so what are the best practices you recommend non-negotiable today if you want a good email deliverability?
If I want to go to email
Deliverability, yeah.
deliverability,
Yeah.
oh man, ask an expert. I am baffled.
Okay, okay.
I don't get it. I mean it. I don't get it. I mean, for one thing, we don't have any spammy email. We make sure our email is valuable. But I mean, for example, I have people on my jazz list, and all I do is I'm talking about jazz. I mean, there's no spam words or anything in anything we do. And these people desperately want their subscriptions. Some of them are big donors. And their ISP, their internet service provider, is constantly unsubscribing them against their will. And then they have to resubscribe, or if we have a lot of older folks, we resubscribe for them. I have to hire somebody to handle all the email deliverability problems because of how screwed up the email deliverability is. So all I can say is it's an issue, and, you know, find someone that's an expert and do what they say.
I remember you like you said something like this once. Before sending an email, we should ask ourselves, is this worth disturbing my subscriber? Something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the problem with email
Yeah.
is great. I came from direct mail background, which meant any message I wanted to send, it cost me about $1 per message, plus all the hassle of writing, you know, and producing the piece and getting it mailed out. I mean, so I was very used to the idea of, don't just send some random junk. And so I applied that discipline to email. But the problem for people that have never done that particular kind of marketing is, since email is quote free, they think, well, it just doesn't matter. I'll just send any old thing out. And I'm telling you, it matters very deeply, because if somebody gets even one bad email from you, maybe they'll stop looking at your mail, or they'll stop reading it. So everything that goes out should be showtime. You know, it's like you're the performer on the stage. You don't go on the stage and just wander around aimlessly. You have to have something dramatic or something entertaining or something useful or something important to say. So I was very lucky to have that direct mail discipline. It never occurred to me just to send an email just for the heck of it. I always treated every email as if it were a mail that I was paying a lot of money for. Because a very important phrase that everybody should memorize comes from the late great wild Gary Halbert, and he said this: a sale is a very fragile thing. Even getting somebody to open your email, that's a sale. You're selling, the quality of previous emails you've sent, the quality of your headline, the quality of your first line. Those are all you're selling. You're selling them on the idea of stopping their life and devoting their life energy to your email. So a sale is a very fragile thing. You don't want to be casual or careless or sloppy with it. You want to really think it through. So yeah, like your life depends on it. No, you know what the analogy I used was? I'm remembering now, and this was I used it for headlines. Imagine you're being chased. Your prospect is being chased down the street by a pack of wild dogs who want to eat him alive. Okay, your headline has to be interesting enough that he'll stop and go, "That's interesting," right? And that's a very high bar, right?
Yeah.
Honest, but you want to have that high bar in your mind. You don't want to just fling rubbish out to your readers.
Okay, so on your days when you're working, at that time, what was your best performing subject lines?
Gosh, well, I had a lot of good ones. I'll tell you one that really hit. This was when it was a presidential election in the United States, and Barack Obama was running against a guy named John McCain. And I wrote a headline that said, John McCain lost in space. And I had a video that had him basically lying, so obviously he was saying one thing, and then you see the real story with real video and you realize he's lying. And because it was a very heated um, uh, election, everybody was, very emotional about it. The fans, the supporters of Barack Obama loved the headline, and they shared it, and that video got 10 million views. This was back when Barack Obama became president, which I think was a long time ago. Was it 2008?
Something around that.
Yeah, I mean, the internet was quite small then. So the reason that headline worked is not one, it got people to open and read, but it also it was in a context. It was in a it was emotionally charged context. And so the thing you need to know about advertising is not great literature. It's not like the Upanishads, Is that the right way to say it? The Upanishads, the famous Indian literature? What do you call it?
Company said,
Upanishads. Okay. You're not writing the Upanishads, right? You're writing something that's going to fade away and decay in 3 days or 3 weeks or certainly 3 months, but definitely 3 years. So what you're really trying to do, you're not trying to become timeless and deep. You're trying to read the public mind in the moment right now, today, and your audience and the specific audience that you're writing to, what's in their mind right now today, and you're trying to hit that target. So a headline that might be great today might be worthless next month. You know what I mean? So that's why when you ask what's the greatest headline you ever wrote, I'm just going to the one that I think got me the most video views. But I don't know that there's a lesson there other than that particular headline to that particular audience at that particular time was powerfully resonant, and that's what made it a good headline. You follow? Okay.
like, yeah, like few months ago when I interviewed Ben, he was also saying the similar thing, like writing live regular email instead of having an autoresponder so that we can speak directly on the time.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get them, I mean, if you want an easy life and low response, just program everything into an autoresponder. If you want the biggest impact and the fastest growth, write live emails as well. You can mix it up a little bit, but if there's something going on, I think the best headlines and the best emails are things that are touching on events that are being felt strongly in the life of your customer. So, for example, right now, anybody in the financial arena that's talking about gold, right, or silver, and your country apparently is buying all the silver in the world right now, that will get resonance. Now, if you tried to talk about silver when it was $30 an ounce, everybody would fall asleep.
Yeah.
So that's why I say the writing of advertising is not timeless. It's not, epic. It's very time sensitive, very timely.
Okay, so what are your overall thoughts on the future of email marketing, especially as young generations spend more time on social media like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok?
Gotcha. Well, I think that the email is still extremely valuable, and if you have anybody that has a social following, and I've been saying this since the day that Facebook launched in 2005, get them off Facebook. I mean, keep them on your Facebook list, but do everything you can to get their email or get them to subscribe to something where you end up with their email because it's a direct line. People they're swiping all day long. And whereas if they get an email, that might, if it gets delivered, which is a big if, and if it gets opened and read, which is another big if, you now have them for longer than you'll have them if it was simply a Facebook or Instagram. Social media is apparently it's a necessity now. I mean, it's a very powerful thing to have a big social media following, but you still always want to get that email because it's a direct line to the person. Related to this, I had a student named Dave D, who's quite bright. I haven't talked to him in a long time. He teaches people how to speak and how to teach and how to sell from the platform, to large groups. And he had a great, very simple system. He would offer something. They would say yes. It was email delivery or a PDF or something. But then on the thank you page, he'd say, if you'd like, instead of just getting the PDF, if you'd like a video, DVD. And I know we're in a different era now, um, but in order for people to get the DVD, the free DVD, of course, they had to give their physical address. So not only did he have the email, he also had the physical address. Because here's the thing. If you get a customer and they know they're not using Instagram anymore, or they change their email, you don't want to lose that customer just because you can't reach them. So you want as many possible ways to reach the customer as possible. And email is great, and even physical addresses are great. I don't know about DVDs anymore. It's hard. It just seems like everything's coming. And Ben kind of predicted this long ago that uh, whether we like it or not, and I don't like it, people are going to be living on their phones and they're going to be doing all their interaction on their phones. So this is an area where people, need to get expert. Make sure your media and your contact with people is phone friendly. I've also seen something really interesting, and actually, I've heard people doing this in other countries other than the U.S. for a long time, which is getting people onto their WhatsApp.
Same.
Very powerful, especially if you're doing high level sales, high ticket sale items. That's very powerful. Run an ad and then have somebody go straight to a WhatsApp call and have somebody talk with them right away. And that's another very powerful thing. If you can manage it, usually somebody opts in or they join your list or they sign up or they make a purchase and then they hear from you 3 months later. It's really great if they hear from you right away. I had a colleague who was selling a book, and this was before it was easy to sell books. Now with Amazon it's super easy, but he had to ship every book to people. So he'd run the ad, people would buy the book. I don't even know if we had online order forms back then. We might not have. There was a time when we couldn't take credit card payments online. When I started, you could not take credit card payments online. So I don't know how he even made the sales, but here's the point. As soon as he put the book in the mail, and then 10 days later, he would physically call the person up and say, "Hey, did you get the book?" And very simple, not a hard sale, nothing harsh or forceful. And just say, "Did you get the book? Good. Okay. Do you have any questions? Have you had a chance to look at it?" You know? And the person might say, "Oh, I haven't read it yet." Okay, well, there's nothing to say. Or they might say, "Oh, I love it. I do have some questions." And I think he sold 1,000 books and he made 1,000 phone calls. And this was back in 96. And he claims, and I think it's true, that he's never had to do any other marketing since. He got so many clients, and he did very well with his clients. And then each client would refer him to somebody else and to somebody else. And so he worked entirely from referral based on
Mhm.
that core of rock solid fans that he developed by picking up the phone and calling them. Now, if you think of the psychology, if I buy a book, I'm not going to be mad if the author calls me up and asks if the book arrived. That's not going to bother me, you know?
Yeah.
And if he'll answer some questions for free, I'm going to be blown away. And if I'm a prospect, his ranking just went really high. If you think about all the other guys, this podcast, this, Facebook group, this, that, well, they're just noise. This guy's a guy that actually called me up. We talked on the phone. And he came across as credible and helpful. He had another thing I want to share with you, which is really valuable. He would have this initial call in addition. So there's a get acquainted call, but then they would have a formal call later. And his plans, and it worked very well for him, was he said, here's the deal. I'm not going to sell you anything, but I'm also not going to solve any problems for you on the phone. We're just going to talk about your situation. I want to know your situation intimately. And it may lead to something or it may not. But you don't have to worry about me trying to sell you the $10,000, gold program or anything like that. But I'm also not going to do free consulting for you and solve all your problems on the call. But I do want to understand your problems. And I do want to share, some general ideas with you. And more often than not, when he had a real prospect, that would lead to what he would do is a proposal for pay, by the way. He'd say, let me work up a proposal for you for X dollars. And then he'd do that. And then that would turn into the actual service contract down the line. So a lot of these old school techniques of actually talking to people have fallen away by the wayside. People aren't doing it anymore, but it's still very powerful. I mean, yeah. I mean, my method, by the way, when I started, believe it or not, when I started, nobody knew what internet marketing was. And the people that had heard of it didn't believe it was true. So I didn't do it one-on-one, but I did a lot of free calls, or I'd have 100 people or 200 people on a call, and I would just explain stuff to them and no compensation. But what happened was when I finally had my seminar organized and I announced that it was ready, they just all came flying in.
I'm curious, like, what was the thought process like when nobody was selling online and you're the first one to start doing that?
It was weird, like in 1994, when I was getting started, there were only 1 million people on the World Wide Web total. That sounds like a big number, but 1 million people is not much worldwide. You know? Now it's billions. You know? So on the one hand, we had everything. If you were on, you were it. You were the only guy. You owned it all. But it's like you were the king of a little tiny village, with 50 people in it. Whereas now, if you hit it, you can. I mean, obviously make millions of dollars. You can see it all the time. People doing very, very well because the market is so much huger. But the front end effort to get attention. I mean, literally, there was a service in the early days. I forget the name of it, but it was something like Website of the Day. And you'd subscribe to the newsletter and you get an email and it would say, oh, here's a website about dogs. And then the next day it would go, oh, here's a website about sailboats. And the next day you get an email. It was totally random, but websites were so rare and people were so excited every time a new website was built that they'd want to just go and look at it. Like they didn't even care what the content was. That's why, for example, the very first guy to use banner ads was a student of mine, a guy named Rick Boyce. Very first banner ads in the history of the world. By the way, I have a book that everybody should know about called How the Web Won. How the Web Won. And it's the history, that pivotal time from 93 to 95, when we went from no one knowing what the web was to everyone knowing what the web was. It happened in 2 years. And much of what made that happen took place in San Francisco and in Silicon Valley. So anyway, the very first banner ad was sold by a student of mine. The student's name was Rick Boyce. And they were getting a 50% click-through rate on banner ads, on random banner ads, because there weren't that many things to click on back in the early days of the internet. So when you saw something you could click on, you just click on it. So obviously that's changed quite a bit. Yeah, so that's what it was like in the old days. But now, I have to say now, it requires more effort, more intelligence, but the prize is much, much bigger. I mean, how much bigger is 3 billion than 1 million? 3,000 times more, I think. My math is correct. There's 1,000 billions. There's 1,000 millions in a billion. Yeah, 1,000,000 people versus 3,000,000,000, that's 3,000 times more people, and now people are comfortable, obviously, buying on the internet. We weren't even sure when I started if people would be comfortable buying things on the internet, and a lot of people weren't initially. Now it's normal, but all that was the pioneering work.
Okay, with all the success you have, which personality traits you attribute majority of your success to?
Oh, obsession, obsession. I don't know how healthy it is, but I mean, once you decide to do something, um, you need to be obsessed. We had a great guy in our industry in the early years named Corey Rudel, and unfortunately, he passed away very young in a car accident in a Porsche on a racetrack. It was very sad, but he was a genius. This was one of the original great geniuses of internet marketing. And Corey, he'd say, "I wake up and I walk to the end of my bed and I immediately start working." Now, I don't know how healthy that is in the long run. You can't do that forever. At a certain point, you got to like live a normal life. But when you're getting started, it's not a casual, "Hey, I'll do a little here, I'll do a little there." No, you got to be all in. I mean, for instance, when I was starting my internet enterprises, I had a business, a totally different business that I owned. It was direct mail oriented and it involved seminar production and promotion, but it was direct mail. And that kept me busy all day. And it was a hard business. And then I'd have dinner and then I would work from like 6 o'clock till midnight or 1 in the morning. So I was working the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs. So, I was obsessed. That helps, and even, like, I saw an interview with, Mr. Beast, is that his name? You know who that is?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. He's a big YouTuber.
Yeah, so big YouTuber, right? Making millions. So he's selling candy bars now. He went into the candy bar business as a sideline, and in addition he got Walmart, which is do they have Walmarts in India?
Walmart, Walmart.
Walmart?
I think not.
You think not?
No.
Yeah, it's anyway, Walmart, there's a lot of them in the States, so these huge stores, like, you can't believe how big these stores are. They sell everything. So it's very positive to get your product sold in Walmart. It's very challenging as well, but very positive. So he got his candy bar sold, I think it was in Walmart. It was some big chain store. And so he said, "Oh, yeah, I was taking a drive. I was going from New York down to Washington, DC." And he stopped at every single Walmart to see how his candy bars were being displayed in every single store on his way, and that's a long trip, that's about a 300-mile car trip. So that's the level of obsession and attention to detail that businesses require, especially in the early days. So if you're asking about a character trait, I think that's really important.
Okay, what do you think? What are the most common mistake businesses make when it comes to direct response?
Talked about one of them, which is just thinking you can throw any old thing out there and it's gonna work. You have to really think about what you're putting out there. Uh It's not so much mistakes as failure to do certain things, right? So that's number one. We talked about that. Number two is the direct response is entirely about making offers. And making offers is about asking somebody to do something specific that you can measure. Doesn't necessarily mean a sale, even. It means, hey, come and watch the video. That's an offer, right? And the video may be free. You need to get really good at making offers. You need to make everything seem like the most amazing thing that ever happened on the earth in the history of mankind, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how to teach that, but other than to say that that's what needs to be in the back of your mind. It can't be, "Oh, we have an interesting video on the subject of a," no, it can't be that. It's gotta be it's drama, it's show business. It's
Uh-huh.
Hollywood or Bollywood, however you wanna put it, right? It's gotta be exciting and dramatic, and there's gotta be a strong reason for the person to take the action. So if you're gonna be in direct response, it's not formula following. I mean, you need to know the formulas. You need to know them all. But beyond the formulas, you need to have this sense of showmanship, of, catching attention and getting people excited about something. So this is critical, right, to direct response. So you can't just, "Hey, I'm gonna have AI write a headline for me." No. I mean,
Uh,
I will say, I I
yeah.
I think there are certain areas of AI that are unbelievable. Like, I'm doing research for a book. I'm writing a book on the just to show you why how I'm doing all kinds of crazy things now. I'm writing a book on the history of modern medicine, and, it's a very complicated story, and "Whoa, ChatGPT is like having it's literally like having 5 full-time research assistants who are super fast." You know? So this book would have basically been impossible to write without ChatGPT, or I could have written it, but it would take me 20 years, but I'm gonna have it finished hopefully in a year. So ChatGPT is good for that. It is not good for writing headlines. It's good maybe for stimulating your ideas, generating some headlines you can look at and improve, but the point is, this is a human to human thing. You need to know how to get people excited. So if you're gonna go in direct response, you have to be good at that. The next thing that you need to do in direct response is pay attention to what's working and what's not working, you know? And it seems simple, but stop doing the stuff that doesn't work and do more of the stuff that does work. And you'd be surprised how many people, myself included sometimes, will come up with something that works really well, and we will get personally bored of it and we will stop doing it. Whereas our marketplace is not bored at all. They're happy to do that all day long. But we're, as the adverts, that would be an example of a mistake. You may think, well, this is the way I want to present it. And this is, no, you want to present it the way your customers most want to receive it. The other thing, this would be a mistake too, is you've got to understand that the first sale is just the beginning. It's the starting line of the race. It's not the end of the race. It's the beginning of the race. Customers are hard to find. And then once you find them, you want to cultivate them very carefully for more and more purchases. That's why the continuity is so important. If you can develop a good continuity program and get people into it, that is extremely valuable and extremely important. But whatever you do, you have to realize that the customer you have now is actually, is more important than the new customer you're trying to get, because that person's already knows you, so you don't have to go through that. They already know what you do. They kind of know your story. They bought something from you. Hopefully it was great. Hopefully and that's the other thing. Here's another thing. Your products better be great. And by great, I mean perceived as great by the person that receives it. You may objectively say, well, maybe this isn't the world's greatest thing ever done. But from the point of view of the customer that has a need, and that's the reason they bought from you, they didn't buy from you because they were bored. They bought from you because they had a very particular need. If you deliver what you promise and what they hope to get, that's called a great product. So if your product is great, you have a chance of surviving, and you have more and more products and continuity, you have a chance of surviving a direct response. But if you're not geared to that, you're not going to have much of a chance. So these are all basic things, but they're very important. They're very fundamental, and there's no tricks involved. The tricks, there are a million tricks, but they
Mhm.
last, for a day, and then you're back to zero. Believe me, I've seen thousands of people in this industry from the very beginning to today, and I really know what works for the long term and what doesn't. So that's my answer to that.
Okay, so for our listeners who want to get some help from you, want to connect with you, where can they go?
Well, the best thing would be, I have a book called, what is it called?
System seminar?
The System Club Letters. I think it's called that.
Yep, yep.
And that's you mentioned Ben Settle. He has said that that's one of his most favorite, I mean, like top favorite business books of all time. So it's a pretty good book, the System Club Letters book. Do you have it? Let me see.
Yes.
Show it.
One
Or do
sec.
you have, or do you have it on your phone?
Yeah, it's already open.
Anyway, it's a good book, and it's an inexpensive way to connect. There it is. Oh wait, that's called. Oh, that's it. Oh yeah, that's it. That's it. 57 Big Ideas to
Yep.
transform your business and your life. Yeah. So
Yes.
I strongly recommend that. I recommend that book. I think it's a good book. And then the other thing is, I've written a memoir about the early years of web marketing. And Ben, since we all know Ben says that's one of the best business books he's ever read, because I talk about not just the history, but how I went from somebody that nobody ever heard of to somebody that, was at the center of the industry. And I'm not talking about the center of the guru industry. I'm talking about the center of the internet industry, in the 1990s. And I had no special advantages. I worked hard. I was willing to, put myself out there, but that was really all I had. So this book shows you the ways that I, sort of moved around, and how I went here and I tried this and I tried that and I tried this. And there are a lot of lessons in the book. So you'll not only learn the history of how the web became the web, which I think is very useful to know. But you'll also learn, how do you go from zero to somebody who has a big following and a big business? It's not a straight line and it's not a formula, but you can learn how to do it by watching somebody who did it. And it's all laid out on my book. And then the other thing I have is, somebody really wants to become a great copywriter. And this is a course that Ben took when he was getting started. It's called Advanced Copywriting and Info Marketing. And if you join the System Club or you buy that book, you'll figure out how to get in touch with me, and I'll send you to the right link and you can look at it. It's an expensive course, but it's been very evergreen. In fact, Ben had this current issue of his newsletter. The headline is referring to something very specific that was in that course that he took 20 years ago. Very foundational, very, the principles, the psychological principles of copywriting never change. I want to say this about copywriting too. Whether you're a copywriter or not, or whether you aspire to become a copywriter, you really want to know and understand what copywriters do, because copywriting is, I call it the Swiss Army knife. I don't know if does that make sense? This is a special kind of knife, and it has a blade like this and a blade there, and a screw comes out. It's like amazing. It's like 20 tools in one, right? The Swiss Army knife. The thinking that one has to do to be a good copywriter is the Swiss Army knife, not only of business, but of human relations. Because it's all about getting attention, developing interest, keeping the person's interest, serving the person, creating desire, for the thing that you're talking about, clearly spelling out the action steps so that they can understand what they need to do. You have endless opportunities and needs to be able to do that. Even if you're in a store and you're trying to develop a good relationship with the salesman so that he'll give you a good deal, even there, the copywriting skill is very important. It's not, obviously, you're not going to send him a sales letter, but just understanding the principles, of how to engage people in a positive way. And by the way, sincerely, we're not just talking about, hey, here's a trick you can use, no, but, coming at it from sincere feeling, but also being skillful in the way you get people's attention and keep it and make it a pleasant, interesting experience for them. That's what copywriting really is. People are not going to read the long letter or listen to the long video unless it's entertaining, unless it's interesting, unless it speaks to them. So whether you're going to be a copywriter or not, it's a good idea to understand what copywriters do and how they do it. So that's how people would get. I would recommend that book is the best, the quickest way to get into the rest of my work.
Thank you so much for sharing some time with us and sharing your wisdom. It was really great chatting with you.
Well, great. And I want to say in public what I said to you privately. I really admire how diligent and consistent you've been in putting these podcasts together. It's a real great body of knowledge for people. So great to meet you, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. This is Genius Talk Podcast, and I'm your host, Atul Raj, from the bestemailmarketer.com, of course. So speaking of email marketing, if you got some questions, challenges, doubt, or just simply need some help with your email marketing, then reach out to me at atul@thebestemailmarketer.com, and I'll be happy to help.